watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 175, XPages Extension Library Goes Responsive. Download the latest at OpenNTF.org. Okay, this is a really special show to me. It's been a long time coming. I'm very excited about this. Before I get into the meat of the show, I had a couple things I want to talk about up front in case you're new to OpenNTF or you're new to NotesIn9. So let's first talk about OpenNTF. OpenNTF is our great community website that is community run, and it's home to many important projects. I've listed really the top four that I use, though there are many more. And you want to kind of dig through and find them. But I use, of course, the XPages extension library heavily. I've been using the OpenNTF Domino API. That makes a lot of things easier if you're doing some Java with your XPages applications. The XPages debug toolbar by Mark Lusink is a must-have project to have on your server for helping with debugging and seeing what's in scope and things like that. And the one I use more than anything is probably the XPages log file reader. That gives me quick and good access into my logs, and would help if you're restricted on your server by an admin, which I am not really, but if you were, that would be a really must-have to be able to get to see what was on the console and what's in the error logs and stuff like that. But again, there's so many more about using Apache Poi. There's the XPages Essentials project, etc. Another big resource from OpenNTF is the X snippets. So there's just tons of just little server-side JavaScript and Java and whatever else XPages snippets that you can use into your projects. The good one is I think there's like an @db lookup array, which ensures that @db lookup one is better than it beats the 64K limit, and also returns an array because the version out of the box, if it finds a single item, it returns that as, I believe, like a string. If it finds a multiple item, then it returns it as an array, and that can kind of cause some problems in your coding. So @db lookup array, I believe, solves that problem and forces everything to an array. OpenNTF.org is also home to XPages.info, which is something I'm trying to get some time to work on and try to improve that. But right now, if you do go there, you will see some recent blog posts and other kind of content like that aggregated. And again, I have hopes to try to help them out and contribute some time to improve that. But there's a lot of great people behind OpenNTF.org, and they're always looking for help, I believe. So I know their annual general meeting is in a couple days, so that'll probably be a little stale from when this gets published. But again, if you can help out or if you can contribute, I highly recommend it. Now, if you're new to NotesIn9, NotesIn9.com is just a little website that I started doing back in 2009. Currently, this is my 175th show. So they're basically all video tips and tutorials. In total, I've got, I think it's well over 50 hours from more than 35 contributors so far, mostly on XPages topics, and I try to cover the gambit, so there's something for everybody. And I'm trying to get all the shows onto YouTube. Most are there. I have to kind of clean that up a little bit. I also have another couple websites. The bigger one is the XPagesCheatSheet.com. You can actually download some, basically beginning cheat sheets on XPages, and there's a social tools one. And one that's kind of ugly and I need to redo is there's a really good URL cheat sheet. There's a link to that. So if you're working with URLs and XPages, so there's a lot of code samples of how to parse your URL and get the different pieces out of it. I also still have the XPages TV site, which needs a lot of work. So keep your eye on that because I'm starting that up again and trying to kind of clean things up to try to make my back catalog of all these 175 shows a little more easier to find because WordPress, I haven't quite figured out any good way to do that on WordPress. If you do go to the Notes9.com site, there's a mind map which has kind of like a getting started selection of videos, and the videos are otherwise categorized. So I do recommend you check that out. Lastly, some other key resources for the XPages developer is StackOverflow.com. That's probably the #1 where you can go and ask questions, use the tag XPages. A lot of great experts monitor that and answer questions, and it's just been such a godsend to have that XPages have a good presence on StackOverflow.com. And I believe there's been over like 3,200 questions already asked, with most of them answered. So it's also a good place to just read some questions, and you'll find some tips and tricks from there, and learn some things. Another good one is the XPages forum. This is from the IBM Developer Works, or whatever it's called these days, and here's the link. And XPages forum isn't quite as active, but it's a better place than Stack Overflow if you've got a more generic question, because Stack Overflow likes really specific questions. So if you have a kind of just more of a high-end thought, or something else that isn't quite clear and concise, then you might be best starting off at the XPages forum. All right, here's the big one. I've got a new contributor today, and quite honestly, I'm beyond excited about this, because I've been trying to get someone from this group on since basically show number 6, and I'm talking, of course, of the XPages development team. So this is my bucket list show. I finally got a member of the XPages development team on the show, and I couldn't be more excited than to have Brian Gleason come on. Brian is a software engineer on the team, and he's heavily into the extension library itself. And I met him at the last Connect Ed, and he's just a heck of a nice guy. And what he's going to do today is he's going to give us a demonstration of some of the new features that came in the most recent version of the XPages extension library. So with that being said, let's go to the demo.
Hello, my name is Brian Gleason, and I'm a software engineer on the XPages team in IBM Ireland. This video is going to introduce you to the new Bootstrap controls that were added to the XPages extension library in release 12 just recently. So without any further ado, let's get started. Here in Designer, I have a copy of the To-Do application that is now provided in the extension library. You can find the NSF in the extension library zip as of release 12. So I've already got release 12 installed on my server and to Designer, and as a result there is a new control palette on the right for the responsive controls, of which you can see there are 3. So at this time these controls are only designed to work with a Bootstrap theme enabled. And now this app is using a custom theme, To-Do theme, but you can see here that it is using it extends the flat Bootstrap theme. So let's have a look at the first of the new controls, the Navbar control. The Navbar is a responsive navigation bar. It's a control you can add to your application to provide navigation links for navigating around the application. The Navbar is often placed at either the top or the bottom of an app, although with this new Navbar control, you can put a Navbar anywhere on your X page. It's broken up into 4 different areas: the heading, where you could place a logo, company name, or application name; the before links on the left, where you can add 3 nodes to create links. Similarly, there are after links on the right, where you can add 3 nodes as well. And finally, the content area in the middle, where you can add XPages controls of your choosing, such as the links on screen here. The navbar on screen here is largely using default settings. So let's have a look in Designer. You can see here that the navbar is sitting inside a panel with a class of container. This means that the navbar is sitting in a fixed width central column on the page. So going through the list of properties available on the navbar, we've got the fixed property, which allows you to fix the position of the navbar to the top or the bottom of the application. The heading text, which sets some text in the left-hand side of the navigation bar. Inverted, which will invert the style, so the default setting is the kind of grey color that you saw a moment ago, and this will invert the style to a darker color. You've got the before and after links, which allow you to add links to the left and right side of the navbar. The page width setting determines how much of the width of the page the navbar will utilize for its content. So in this particular navbar, as I said, we set the heading text. We have some before links, we have some after links, but mostly default settings. So if I were to click on the fixed top link here in the navbar, it will take me to a new page with another navbar that's been configured a little bit differently. So on this navbar, I've set the inverted property to true, which gives it the darker style. The page width property has been set to fixed. So this means that even though the fixed navbar spans the full width of the page, the content within the navbar is contained within the fixed width column in the center. The navbar is fixed to the top of the page, so if I scroll down the page, you can see that it stays in place. In this particular case, we've got some before links set, but no after links, and then a few links in the content area as well. On the next navbar, the fixed bottom navbar, as the name suggests, fixes the navbar to the bottom of the page, and again I can scroll and it stays in place. And in this case, we've added a search box to that navbar, allowing you to search through the application. The next navbar is a static top navbar, so it is at the top of the application, taking up the full width, but when I scroll, it will scroll out of view. So those are your various options for the fixed property in the navbar. So there's one more page to show you here, which is a page which demonstrates the usage of multiple navbars on the same page. So you can see that I've got a fixed top navbar and a fixed bottom navbar, and if I scroll, they'll both stay in place, and further down the page, I've got a navbar embedded in the middle of the text. So that covers many of the available options of the navbar. So let's move on to our next addition to the extension library. The next addition is called the Simple Responsive Application Layout configuration. This is not technically a new control, it is a new configuration for the application layout control. So the original application layout control was designed based on a OneUI specification. It contains a lot of elements and different facets and configurable options. For instance, there are actually 4 different header bars available to use in the application layout if you so desired. For Bootstrap, we felt that a more slimline application layout configuration would be beneficial, making it easier to configure in Designer and with more of a focus on the responsive behaviors. As you can see, the list of properties for the simple configuration is much reduced in comparison to the OneUI configuration. This new configuration contains only one header, which is a navbar similar to the control I just demoed a moment ago. As well as the header, there's a left facet, a right facet, and the content area of the application layout, and that's it. So we've cleared out a lot of the extra weight associated with the standard application layout configurations. So if I move over to a blank page, with the addition of this configuration, there are now 4 different configurations available for the application layout control. If I drag and drop an application layout control onto the page, the wizard appears, and this wizard has been modified and enhanced to incorporate the growing list of configurations. So you can see all 4 configurations available here. You can filter by responsive or non-responsive configurations. And in the responsive side, you can see that we have the new simple responsive configuration available. You can also configure the options within this wizard if you so choose, or just drop it onto the page and start working in the All Properties pane below. Before I go into any more detail on the simple responsive configuration, I want to talk about another new control, as the next demo will cover both this configuration and the new control together. This new control is called the dashboard control. The dashboard is effectively a responsive panel that can be used to display information in your application. The dashboard can provide useful or important information to the end user at a glance. It consists of a number of dash nodes, up to 12, and allows for a heading property. Each node consists of a number of different elements, including an image, a title, a badge, and a description, all of which are optional. So you can specify to use any image of your choosing, or you can use glyph icons instead. And the title, description, and the badge can all be used to present information to the user in the application. It is fully responsive, and app developers have the ability to customize the size of the nodes for different screen sizes using the size properties. But the best way to understand the dashboard control is to see it in action, so let's jump to a demo. The to-do application uses the simple responsive configuration in combination with a dashboard control. The home page contains a dashboard at the top, which tells the user the number of tasks under each status. To-dos that have not yet been completed represented by the blue node, completed tasks represented by the green node, urgent tasks in the orange node, and overdue tasks in the red node. Each node is using a different glyph icon to represent that particular status, and each of them is set with a large font size on the page. And the badges for each node tell us how many tasks currently have that particular status. In Designer, you will have seen that the dash nodes were set to have a size of 3 for small, medium and large screens, and a size of 6 on extra small screens. The size value is utilizing Bootstrap's grid system to determine the size of each of the nodes. In Bootstrap, each container has 12 columns. By setting the size of the nodes to 3, that means that they each take up 25% of the available width. And we get the 4 nodes evenly distributed across the dashboard, as you can see. On an extra small screen, such as a mobile phone, the size is set to 6, so each node takes up 50% width. When the total of all the nodes exceeds 12, the nodes will automatically be stacked vertically. I can simulate this by resizing the browser here, and you can see that the nodes automatically stack into two rows, one on top of the other. So by customizing the size properties of the nodes, you can control the responsive behavior of the dashboard across the 4 different screen sizes. The icon properties here define that we want to use a glyph icon, so icon enabled is set to true, and in the icon property we've set glyph icon th list as the icon for this particular node. You can also customize the icon style and the tag used for the icon, in this case a div. So you've already seen the result of using glyph icons in the dashboard, but what if you want to use images instead? Well, if I comment out this dashboard control and comment in this other dashboard control. So in the properties of this dashboard, you can see that the image source property has been set to landscape2.jpg. Now this is an image resource that has been added to the application. We've also set the image width and height, and set the style class of the image to image circle, which is a class that comes from Bootstrap to give a circular shape to the image. So back in the browser, if I resize it to a bigger size again and hit refresh, you can now see that the 4 different images are being used instead of glyph icons in the dashboard. So there's a fair bit of flexibility in the dashboard and how you can use it in your applications. So that kind of sums up a quick look at the dashboard control. So let's go back and look at some of the simple responsive configuration properties in Designer. So here we have the custom control containing the definition of the application layout control used for all of the pages in the to-do application. And it is using the simple responsive configuration. The list of properties contains a number of Bootstrap and responsive properties. So you can see the fixed navbar property, which fixes the navbar to the top or bottom of the application. Inverted navbar, which will change the style to the darker inverted style. There's no navbar logo set, but the navbar text has a computed value and is set with a bold style. We've added some utility links to the navbar, and the page width is set to fluid. You can set the page width value to full, fluid or fixed. Full taking up the full width of the application, fluid takes up most of the available width, but with a small margin on either side, and the fixed width will be a fixed central column size. Now if I was to change 1 or 2 properties, let's go back to the default coloring and change the fixed property to fixed bottom, hit save. If I refresh the browser, you can see that the navbar is now located at the bottom of the page and has been changed to a grey styling. One other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the navigator menu on the left of the page. This is in the left facet of the simple layout configuration. If I resize the browser though, that left facet will disappear completely. So how is that happening? In Designer we have these 3 properties in the simple layout configuration: the collapse left menu, collapse left column and collapse left target. So the collapse left column property will determine if the left column should be collapsed on smaller screens to kind of save some screen real estate. If it is collapsed, the target for the collapsing is set here to .hidden content inner. So on every page of this application there is a panel that has been set to display none, so it's hidden from view, and inside that is another panel with this class hidden content inner. So setting this target on the collapse left target property means that the navigator inside the left column facet will be made a sibling of the hidden content inner panel on smaller screens. So the effect of that is to hide the menu on smaller screens, as you saw. And there are some other responsive features that took place automatically in the application layout. So the menu that was on the top, or was on the right hand side of the navbar, has now been collapsed into a drop down menu. So this helps us save some screen real estate in the navbar whilst maintaining the functionality in the application. You've already seen that the dashboard automatically stacks vertically, but also other elements in the page will stack vertically as well. So the buttons and the pager were formerly on the same row, but now are stacked vertically to be better laid out on a smaller screen. So that just about covers the features of the simple layout configuration and the dashboard in the to-do application. But there is one more control that I want to show you today, and that is called the carousel. The carousel is a slideshow control that we have built up using functionality that is part of Bootstrap. It is made of a number of individual slides and you can cycle through the slides either automatically or through user click events on the arrows on the left and right. The XPages carousel control can have any number of slides that the application developer desires, and the carousel's responsiveness can also be customized. So over in Designer, we have a carousel here with a list of properties that you can configure. Autocycle is a Boolean property that indicates if the carousel should automatically cycle through its slides. Currently set to false. I'll change that over to true. Slide interval is how much time in milliseconds to delay between autocycling to the next slide. Wrapped is a Boolean property that indicates if the carousel should wrap from the last slide back to the first. We had that set to true, so let's change it to false. And the pause property indicates whether the autocycling should pause whenever the user hovers their mouse over the carousel. The four height properties here allow you to set the height of the carousel for each of the different screen sizes in Bootstrap. So each slide node in the carousel has a number of configurable properties itself. The background can either be a solid color or an image of your choosing. There is a main heading. There's also a smaller caption, a description, and all three of those are optional elements. Finally, you can add a link that will appear as a button at the bottom of the slide. So let's go back to the browser and hit refresh. And you should see that the carousel will automatically cycle through the slides. And if I hover the mouse over the carousel now, it will stop cycling. One other feature to point out is the indicator circles at the bottom of the carousel, which allow you to jump back and forth between different slides, and it indicates which slide you are currently on. So if I resize the browser, you can see the effect of the four height properties that were set in Designer. Shrinking it down, it drops to 500 pixels in height, and then 400 pixels in height, and then on the smallest screen size will drop to 300 pixels in height. And the cycling will continue to work as normal. As you can see, the carousel has stopped auto-cycling on the last slide, and that's because the wrapped property was set to false, so it doesn't wrap back to the first slide. The carousel is designed to take up the full width available in the application, and so the background image is also designed to fill the carousel as fully as possible. So it can provide a very engaging interface on home pages or splash pages, but it can also be adapted for other uses such as scrolling through a list of products or a list of links to other information. So that gives you a quick idea of the power of the carousel control and how it can be configured. As I said before, this application is now available as part of the extension library release. So you can download it, pop it on your server, and start exploring it to get an idea of how to use these new controls in your applications. That just about wraps things up for this video on the new Bootstrap controls in the XPages extension library. Be sure to check out the XLib project on OpenNTF for future releases of the extension library. And there are plenty more videos on NotesIn9 and on OpenNTF's YouTube channel. I'm also available on Twitter as well via the username on screen. So that's it. Thanks for watching.
And that's the demo. I can't thank Brian enough for coming on the show, and the other team members for the support that they've given me behind the scenes. And I really appreciate everything that they've done for not only me, but for XPages in general. And I hope to have Brian back on, and maybe some of the other team members as time permits. They're always invited. If you have any questions for me, here's my contact information, and I thank you for your time.